Well, VAR You Serious Moment of the week, Dad. Manchester City, we're talking about them again because Rodri and Pep can't stay out of the media, seemingly here, Dad. And I don't need to go into too much detail. I'm sure people have been paying attention. But after that 2-2 draw with Spurs, Rodri claimed people don't want City to win. After a controversial goal that was allowed by VAR, Rodri insinuated the refs and other people don't want them to win, which is funny considering some of the things that you look back on in their past and reffing decisions going their way. But then you have Pep Guardiola saying a couple of interesting things. A day ago, Pep Guardiola joked and sarcastically said how City are 7th in net spend, saying they need to spend more. Now, this kind of was more of a joke, but still seems a little odd. And then one more time, Pep also essentially, what did he come back and say? Now I'm losing my notes here because I thought he said more. But Dad,
Well, he
there's a lot
talked
of
about,
desperation here.
I think today, or no, I'm sorry, yesterday, whichever day, he talked about the fact that Guehi isn't allowed to play in the Carabao Cup final or the semifinal yesterday. And if you spend a lot of money, then you should be able to play. I mean, dude, come on. You know the rules. This is what happens. It happens to every club. There's no conspiracy against Manchester City. I got to say, it's interesting. Like, City, and maybe the turnover that you mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode at City, maybe they aren't the squad in some ways that they once were, because I don't recall a time where City have complained and whined 3 times in the last 4 or 5 days. That to me
Yeah.
shows weakness.
It's
Right?
desperate for sure.
And we had talked about how they were kind of on a roll, picking up 2 guys in the transfer window, including Guehi. And to come out and say this and complain like this, to me, is pretty uncharacteristic. So to me, it shows weakness. I think they know they are chasing Arsenal. They're chasing everything, because otherwise they wouldn't complain, especially the Carabao Cup final thing in Guehi. That's just ridiculous for Pep to even bring up.
Well, totally. And I think going back to last season when City kind of knew they were out of the title race a bit, right? Liverpool were going to win the league. Like everyone kind of knew
Yeah.
after January, right? You
Yeah.
saw Pep get a little anxious about certain things, but never like targeted. So for all of this to hit in 1 week, when Rodri comes out and says people don't want them to win, well, probably true. You've won about 20 trophies in the last 10 years. Like, yeah, probably overwhelmingly majority don't want you to win. But to target that at the refs, I think is ridiculous. First of all, every team gets bad reffing decisions. It's how the game works, right? But then also, he's said before how Arsenal in the past have not had the mentality to win the league or win a trophy. This seems like a wavering mentality and position of confidence on their part.
Absolutely. I think City really, I mean, I watched the first half of that City Tottenham game, where City dominated that first half. And in fact, I had something to do. And so I felt, yeah, this game's over. Tottenham's not playing well. And I think it really impacted City's psyche. Having Tottenham come back, tied up 2-2, controversial goal or not, I think it really messed with their psyche. They probably were like me. They probably thought, hey, we have this. We can be on cruise control.
Yep.
And so Tottenham, who we've talked about, has not been playing well in the Premier League, came out and did what they had to do. And so we've already said this. There's more competitive teams this year in the Premier League than any time in the recent past. You cannot take anyone lightly. Even Tottenham, who's in 14th place or something like that,
Yeah.
you simply cannot take anybody lightly, even for half a game. So I think there needs to be some reflection on the part of City and taking a little bit of accountability and saying like, "Hey, still don't like that call, but we should have done X, Y, and Z to not even let it come to that."
Well, and based off of that first half, to your point, Dad, the Spurs game is a prime example, like you said. I mean, City could have been up 4-0, 5-0 in the first half.
Oh, oh yeah.
You know, you can always blame something else other than yourself, and that's in life, like we've talked about, right? You can always blame someone else or something else, and that's what City's doing, to your point. They could have won that game if they kept the foot on the gas pedal. You were literally playing a Spurs team that I think had maybe 12 fit senior players. That's how many injuries they have right now, to be
Yeah.
fair to Spurs,
Yeah.
right? Makeshift backline. Romero, their captain, comes off at halftime. So Spurs arguably get weaker going
Yep.
into the second half and turn the game on its head. And honestly, I was surprised Spurs didn't win the game. They looked 10 times better than City in the second half. Looked like they were going to get a third goal. And I think it's like, look at yourself in the mirror. Like, if you're these champions that win everything, maybe Pep and Rodri need to go, go into the bathroom together and look in the mirror together, because I think it's a little
I thought you were
ridiculous.
gonna say something else about them going to the bathroom together, but we
I
won't
mean, I
go.
wouldn't be surprised there either. I don't know what they enjoy, and that's totally fine, whatever they like to get up to. But I mean, it just seems like they need to take a step back, because I think putting themselves in this media attention is what throws you off, right? And they had a good result today, but still,
Yeah.
I don't see it completely, you know?
No, it is a sign of weakness, which I'm not used to seeing from City. You know, I don't recall, but for sure, but I don't think Arsenal blamed refs or complained when they lost to Villa at the death and when they lost to Man U at home. I don't think you and I complained about anything. In fact, I think I gave them props. I was disappointed, but I didn't blame anybody else. Arsenal could have done some things differently, and that's on them. So for
Yeah.
City, who usually would be like that, for City to come out and start grasping at everything. Oh, no one wants us to win. The refs don't want us to win. Net spend is not fair. Carabao Cup rules are not fair. Dude, like, what are you doing?
Well, it's like, what's not fair about you guys spending, 430 million pounds in the last calendar year? I'm sorry. Like, no one's going to feel sorry for you when you're buying the best players in every
Well,
position.
and what did they just spend in January? A
I
lot,
mean,
right?
almost 100 mil, at least maybe 100 million,
I
right? They
mean,
spent 65 million on Semenyo and I think 30 million on Guehi.
and did anybody else in the Premier League spend that much in January?
No, nowhere close. And by the way, that means they bought the best on the market center back in the Premier League that could have gone to Real Madrid after
Yep,
this year, right?
sure.
Like, one of the best center backs in the world. And Semenyo, who's the third top goal scorer in the Premier League, $65 million pound release clause, right? Like, all this to then be this desperate. Like, this is what Arsenal used to do. This is what
Yep,
Arteta and Arsenal used to do,
correct.
which is why we never made it through. So maybe Rodri was right. We didn't have the mentality in the past. Well, clearly now there's a 180 flip on what's going on right now.
A As of now, I would say that's a fair thing to say. Absolutely, and, you know, we'll see how it plays out. Maybe this is sort of a blip in the road, rough week, and then City kinda move on, but it does give you a little insight, and I'm sure it's not just Rodri and Pep that are feeling this way and thinking this way. By the way, when are those 115 charges gonna be dealt with? Right? I think reporters should be asking Pep and Rodri about that.
Yeah, and listen, all alleged until there's something that comes out. I'll say that, right? Like, due process, but due process is the clock's ticking. It's been way too long now. It'd be nice to hear something one way or another. Maybe that's why they're getting so desperate, because maybe something's coming. We don't know.
Well, I was thinking that, and I gotta be honest, at this point, I mean, they should have announced whatever decision back in like November, December. Good God, they have to have an answer by now. And at this point, since they haven't done it, and the fact that both Arsenal and City are alive in all four tournaments or competitions, I don't want them to say a word until the season's over,
Yeah,
because then Arsenal, whoever, gonna have to hear forever. Well, you didn't win the Premier League, or you won the
because
Premier
of the
League.
asterisk.
I don't even want to hear that. And if City's going to complain about Carabao Cup rules, oh boy, what's going to happen if those punishments, if there's punishments, come down for the 115 charges?
I mean, I thought Mikel Arteta complaining about the ball in the Carabao Cup last season would be the most ridiculous thing I've heard from a manager. But for a manager to say they're gonna send a note in to the League Cup to try and get Guehi in for the final is about the most weak, desperate thing I've heard for a guy who's spent his whole career spending money to get what he needs. So, as you said, Dad, I think there's a lot on the horizon for City, and hopefully it comes at the end of the season, right? But for now, game on. I think, I want to see City play well, and I want to see it go all the way to the end, right? Like, let's see some good football at the end of the day without being biased, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. So we shall see.
Oh,
La,
we didn't give a verdict. I'll give a yellow card. I don't think it needs to be anything crazy.
I probably won't even give a card. It's more just like, all
Just
right,
dumb.
yeah, just dumb, and like you've actually lost some competitive advantage to some extent. Like Arsenal can look at that and be like, all right, these guys are they've just bought two great players and they're still feeling the heat. So that probably helps teams like Arsenal and Villa and Man U and so on.
Absolutely, Dad. Absolutely. But like you said, we'll see kind of how this plays out the rest of the season.